All right, Dr. Parent, thank you so much for being a guest on Wicked Smart Golf. Very excited to learn a lot about how this mind works and how we can play better golf and enjoy life more today.
My pleasure, Michael. Great to talk with you.
Yeah, I mean, as a golf writer and an avid golfer, I just have to first say, before we get into anything, congrats on all your success and thank you for sharing your wisdom. Because the fact that you've sold over 1 million books in print, audio, Kindle is astonishing. I mean, very few people can say that. But it's not just some fluff book. This book can absolutely change your game, change your life, and it is one that I recommend to new mental golf coaching students I work with. Listen to it every year. Listen to it every 6 months. Listen to it when you get in a rut. So to have something be as good as this is for 20 plus years and still being a consistently top seller, just congrats to that, because you didn't have to write this book and you chose to, and millions of people are saying thank you now.
Well, thank you. And I feel very fortunate that it connected with people as well as it did. I was able to follow Zen Golf up with Zen Putting and Golf, the Art of the Mental Game, and then other books on other topics. But golf's the real heart of what I do.
Yeah, and that's actually where I wanted to start, even before getting into golf, is when I was reading more about yourself and your background, that you've been, studying mindfulness and really doing this since the 70s. And I know that, for me, I didn't even get started. I think the first time I even learned about meditation or tried that, I was probably in my mid-20s. So what was the kind of start of this for you, and what really attracted you to learning more about the mind?
Well, I think there are three different prongs to what I do that came together. And one, since I was 10 years old, playing golf, but it was the only unorganized and sometimes disorganized sport that I did. There was football, wrestling, track, tennis, little league baseball, but then golf. Drop us off at the golf course first thing in the morning, pick us up at dark, and we just knock the ball around. I didn't do a lot with lessons or try, or play that proficiently. But I loved playing golf. Then in college, I went to Cornell University and started actually in engineering, and decided I was more interested in people than in things. So I switched to psychology. And at the same time, I got interested in Eastern wisdom, mindfulness and awareness practice, and understanding the mind from that perspective. So I had an East and West perspective on understanding the mind. Continued on to get my PhD. And in the process of that, I was teaching at a center for Eastern and Western psychology, with a lot of mindfulness practice and a lot of working on personality and different styles of performance. Young man came to the program who had just graduated from college, played on his college team, and was headed to Florida to be an assistant pro. And I said, "Oh, we're going to play hooky and go out and play golf." So we headed for the golf course. And as we got on the golf course, he said, "Okay, here's what I need. I need you to tell me what my mind is doing as I play golf." And I said, "I got a deal for you. I'll tell you what your mind is doing. You tell me what my body is doing." And that's when I really started getting lessons and started getting better at golf. And that was my first golf coaching opportunity. He became a teacher and had clinics and invited me to come into the clinics. And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And he said, "Well, teach working with breathing, working with visualization, working with routine." So those are the three main things that I started with. Using your breathing to get yourself grounded, visualizing a positive image of your shot, and then working with the routine that leads you into your best performance of that shot. People loved it. And I decided, rather than psychology in an office, why don't I teach psychology in a better office, like a golf course? And that led to my practice.
No bad days on the golf course, and then you're out there helping people with the mental side of things. When did you start the? Because you worked with tons of PGA, LPGA players. When did that all start then?
Really started working with professionals around 1997. It's about 25 years ago.
Okay, and
And I got invited to do a clinic at a country club, and one of the members' son was going to be trying out for the PGA Tour and going to the Q school, the qualifying school tournaments, and asked me to work with him. I worked with him in his process. He made it just through first stage and then didn't make it through the next stage. But one of the men who was playing with him in the tournament liked what I was saying and asked me to work with him to second stage and then to the finals. And then some players started inviting me to work with them. I met Vijay Singh and through his physical trainer. And I remember the first question he asked me was, I've been out here a long time and I know where all the bad places are. And so I want to put them out of my mind. How do I do that? And that's how we started working together.
that's
There's
interesting too.
there's
Yeah,
another story about that, but I'll save that for our next meeting.
I love it. I love it. I appreciate that. And what's cool too is VJ is known for being just an absolute worker. I mean, that guy, I see him still to this day training hard physically. And he is known to be a range rat and just is putting in the work. And the fact that he was also working on the mental game is fantastic. So it just goes to show a good work ethic and having the right mental side of things can do wonders for your game. And was it at that point then that you started writing some golf articles, and then that's how the inception of Zen Golf came out?
It was actually before I started working with VJ. And that was my sister, who has been a writer and editor of children's books for many, many years, introduced me to, she was at a party and met an agent who heard that I was teaching Buddhist meditation and golf. Said, "What? Wow. Does he have a book?" And my sister's really sharp. And she said, "He's working on one."
Nice.
Now, my plan was to write magazine articles, 2 to 3 page articles, and then when I had enough of them, put them all together into a book. I'd written maybe half a dozen, so I had 12 pages worth of writing. And the agent said, "I want to see your stuff." So I sat down and took all my notes out and started writing. And fortunately, she did a great job of selling the book to Doubleday. Now, the book's getting published. I've finished writing it, and I need a cover blurb. So I went up to I asked VJ for his address when I was at a tournament with him. Said, "Can I send you this book?" And I did that for a number of pros. He got the book. He really liked it. And I heard back that he really liked it. So I went up to him at a tournament and he said, "Oh, you wrote that book? Maybe we could talk." I said, "I'd love to have a little blurb for the cover." He said, "Come and walk with me." And he not only gave me a blurb for the cover, but hired me to work with him as mental game coach.
That's amazing. And when you got started, I'm sure you had no idea that 20 plus years later, you're still talking about it and still impacting so many golfers. What was your inspiration, I guess, to do this? Was this stuff that you've just done in your own game and done with other players? And like, how did you were able to structure it? Because I remember reading or listening to another interview, you said the chapters kind of got thrown around a little bit to make the publisher happy to get it the way they liked it. And just what was that creative process like? Because there's so much wisdom in there that you could listen to any chapter and it's a standalone. It's a great read or listen.
Thank you. And that's really how I wrote it, as you didn't have to do the whole thing all the way through. It's helpful to have the background and the perspective, which is the opening section. But really it wasn't theory. It came out of lessons, experience with practicing and teaching mindfulness and working with breathing, and then the lessons that I actually did with students. So I found things that seemed to be more universal than just a particular individual, and used that. And what I like to do was tell the story of the lesson and then explain how that all worked. And it's been fun because I have people come up to me and they say, "So let me get this straight. Were you in the bushes watching me? Because everything you say goes right to what I do." And the mind is the same for everybody. The biggest source of interference is worrying about outcomes, worrying about results. And that goes from beginners all the way through the top pros.
Before getting into the kind of framework of the book too, can you talk about the empty cup mentality? Because I love that. And to me, it just sets a precedent that you're willing to learn and get started on the right foot.
Well, I started, as I said, the book went through different organizational modes, but I wanted to start with the perspective. How are we looking at things? How do we understand the mind? How do we understand how the mind and body work together the best? Because you don't just think your way around the golf course. You have to actually have clubs and balls and play golf. So it's how can you synchronize your mind and your body so that your mind is more of an ally than an enemy? Because sometimes a lot of people understand that their mind seems to be their enemy on the golf course at times. So so I wanted to start with that and open up with the chapter saying, have an open mind to what I'm going to present here. And so many chapters start with a little Zen story. And this Zen story is a professor who was very smart, went to a Zen master, a meditation master, and said, "I want to learn about Zen. This is what I understand. I've learned a lot about Zen, and I just want to run this by you. And it's like this, and it's not like that, and it's like this, and it's not like that, and it's like this, it's not like that." And the Zen master said, "Hang on, before we talk, let's have some tea." And there's a tea ceremony in Japan, and the person being served tea has to be very still and very quiet. So the master is pouring the tea, and he pours it till the cup is full, but he keeps pouring. And then it goes on to the saucer and onto the table and then onto the floor. And the professor can't stand it anymore. And he says, "Stop, stop. The cup is full. No more will go in." And he said, "Like this cup, your mind is full of your own opinions and preconceptions. You can't learn about Zen until you first empty your cup."
Yeah, I feel like too when this all came out, I mean, the mental game was like barely even talked about, right? I mean, I feel like most people were almost think that if you were working with a sports psychologist, something was wrong with you, and so you all of a sudden, have and now it's like if you don't have one, something's wrong with you. So it's funny how much can change in 20 years.
That's true, and I'm very gratified that very often you hear on a golf broadcast, he was really in a Zen moment for that shot, and I feel like that came out of my work in Zen Golf. So I was very happy. One of my goals was when somebody's that they will talk about it that way. That when somebody was playing lights out, that they would say he's really playing Zen Golf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's nothing like when you're playing good and it just feels easy. It feels like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to play, and that kind of, and you're outdoors, you got the perfect weather, you're hitting it good. It is like very Zen. I mean, it does not get any better, and that's why it's so fun to chase this ball around and hope for the best. And so that's why I think that so many golfers can benefit from your PAR approach, because it's really the framework of the book. I actually have a couple of quotes that I really like, and I wanted to start with the preparation was the first part of that acronym. And you said, "Focus totally on the routine, and thoughts of results are less likely to imperil any of your transitions." I hope every golfer can just understand how important the routine is. And I'm hoping that you can elaborate a little bit more about each of these letter or acronyms and figure out how we can get people to get themselves set up for success and get that mind working as an ally, not an enemy.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I think we should start with understanding what the word Zen means. And it's an interesting background. If you're interested in the language, it's Japanese. The Chinese was Chan, and the from India, couple thousand years ago, it was dhyana. So it's a similar sounding word, but it basically means fully absorbed in awareness of the present moment. And it's a big awareness, not a focused, so mindfulness is focus on something. Awareness is uh, perception, the perspective of a big space around which that is happening. So when you're playing golf, you want to be focused on exactly what you're doing, but you have to do it within a bigger space of awareness. And that's how you pick your target. That's how you choose your club. That's how you know what the environment is that's going to let you produce the best shot. So let's start with the par approach. What we want to do is get out of our own way and get the most out of our abilities, so that we're not thinking about how we're playing the shot, but we're just in the moment producing it. And it feels like the energy is flowing through you rather than coming from you. And that's that feeling you were talking about, Michael, of the kind of in the zone. So Zen and zone kind of go together. How do you do that? First, the preparation is having a clear picture of where you do want to go within the space. Because I like to say in golf, you aim at a spot, but you play to an area. Everybody has a dispersion pattern. So give yourself room to play. And the more room you have, the less uptight you're going to be when you swing. So a clear picture of where you do want to go with room to play, commitment, and it's easier to commit to something that you have confidence in rather than that you're worried about, and composure. That if you're still churning and thinking about what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future, well, if I hit it here, then I'm going to birdie, and if I birdie this hole, then I'm going to birdie the next hole, and blah, 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 blah. You're not grounded. You're not in your body. You're in your head. So you got to get out of your head into your body, and you do that with breathing. Breathe it down, exhale, and settle into the ground. And so now you have a clear picture of where you want to go. You have a commitment to the club and the feel of the swing that you had in mind. And you're grounded and settled. And then you're ready to execute. That's the second part of the par approach, the A, action. And that is swinging without the interference of worrying about how it's going to turn out. And if you're worried about how it's going to turn out, I worked with Christy Kerr as well and helped her get to number one in the world. And she came up with a great acronym. If you're worried about results, the first three letters of those words are WAR. If you worry about results, you're at war with yourself. So what happens if you're worried about the results? Well, if you don't trust your swing, you help it do what you want it to do. Or if you're worried about where the bad place it might go, you make an avoiding swing to prevent it from going where you want it to go. And if you just don't know, you kind of make a guidey kind of swing, hoping it doesn't go wrong. Well, any of those three aren't going to be your best swing. So we want to be focused, flowing through our transition, our and I feel like the swing starts before you get to the ball. That's why I don't call it a pre-shot routine. I call it a swing routine. And I don't call it a practice swing. I call it a programming swing. You program in your feel. And then the swing starts as you take your breath and then walk into the ball. And the rhythm that you approach the ball with is going to set you up for a rhythm of your swing. Then you swing with as much commitment and as little fear as you can. And then you have a post-shot routine. That's the response to results. And many years ago, nobody had a post-shot routine. The only post-shot routine they had was either got away with that one or cursing it.
We've all been there.
The post shot routine is to reflect on, well, how committed was I? Did I really trust that one? And if you really did and you really liked the shot, compliment yourself. If you didn't like the shot, learn from it and replace it with the swing you wish you'd made. So you never leave a spot with a bad swing. And you learn something about your pre-shot. And that's called Kaizen, or the cycle of continuous improvement. So you actually get better as you play when you use the par approach.
Yeah, oh man, there's so much good stuff in there. I have so many notes here. I'm trying to figure out where to start, because the par approach, to me, it's just such a simple framework that I feel like so many people just don't have like any of it. You know, the everyday golfer just does such little prep work, and then they wonder why they're good on the range and just terrible on the golf course. If you don't have any sort of preparation, how can you stand over that ball with any commitment? And so anytime I'm working with someone, I'm like, we have to dial in the routine, and or however you want to do, you know, the preparation portion, because it's just so big. Because if you're standing over a putt and you haven't decided which way it's breaking, or you still don't know if it's an 8 or a 9 iron, you're never going to play your best, right? And so I really like how you said that you want to have 100% confidence before walking into the shot. And you talk about images are different ways to visualize, and how images play such a big role. Can you elaborate a little bit on different ways to visualize, or what that process looks like behind the golf ball to get your mind and body with the programming swings together?
Yeah, to start with, I want to respond to what you said about walking in with 100% confidence. Most people don't have that kind of unconditional confidence. So what I wrote was walking in with 100% commitment, which means, but also 100% pre-acceptance that I'm going to do my best to hit my best shot, but I can handle it wherever it ends up. If you can't handle, you know, that, what's that, A Few Good Men movie? You can't handle
the truth.
can't handle the truth. If you can't handle how it might end up, change your plan. If there's too much trouble around the green and you have a club that your dispersion pattern, a big amount of that is going to end up in the trouble, turn it into a two-shotter. The par doesn't, whatever it says on the card doesn't matter. It's how you can get through that hole in the fewest strokes. So why would you take a risk of a triple bogey when you can have a chance for par, and the worst you're going to make is bogey? So that's thinking it through properly. But pre-acceptance is the key. If you can't accept it, then you won't commit. Now, that's why you have to make that kind of plan and feel that when you're picturing the shot and see what you have in mind. Now, when you said picturing the shot, that's very interesting. I use the word image rather than visualization. And an image can be a visual image. It can be a feeling image. It can be a sound image. I have one student, I said, so what kind of shot do you want to hit into the green? And he said, kind of a 2-hop and stop where it goes. I went, oh, interesting. Well, what if you were going to take it in high? And he said, well, then I'd hit one that went. I went, okay, so you are a very auditory person. You're focused on hearing. I want you to think about how you want it to sound coming off the club face. I want you to talk to yourself. And one of my recent lessons, I had the person describing the shot to themselves as they walked up into the address position, because they're very hearing oriented. People who are feel oriented, I want them to really move a lot as they're getting into address, and really, okay, behind the ball, feel what you need to. And I had one student, as far as the image went, had an imaginary hand go out on the green to feel the break. He pictured a hand going out and feeling, because he was so feel oriented. And then Jack Nicklaus, very visual oriented, he called it going to the movies. He stood behind the ball and actually pictured himself walking into address, setting up how he was aimed, and making the swing and the flight of the ball all the way till it stopped. Going to the movies, visual. Feeling it with your, as if you had an imaginary hand, tactile or feeling. Hearing yourself say it and the sound that you want to hear, auditory. We all have a combination of those three. And for many people, one is very predominant, but other people kind of, they're more evened out. So you have to find what works for you in the way you imagine. We all have, somebody said, I can't visualize. I said, that's okay. If you could, what would it look like? Well, it would look like this. I said, you just did it. And they said, it doesn't have to be like a movie or a paintbrush or something. No, it's what's ever in your mind's eye, how you imagine. People said, well, I can't visualize. I said, can you imagine your kitchen at home? Yeah. Can you imagine getting something out of the refrigerator? Yeah. You just did it. It's just imagination. So imagine what you want to happen in whatever way you imagine things, and then put yourself in the best position to fulfill that imagining, that image that you had.
Yeah, I really hope people listen to that again and again, because I was that guy. When I first got into personal development and I was, going to Tony Robbins stuff, and I'm reading success principles, and I'm really like trying to, better my life and see how that can impact golf. Visualize. I don't know if it's because I can only see out of one eye or I just don't have that visualization, but it just never worked for me. So I was that guy that would have called you and be like, am I doing something wrong? I felt like a failure. And then I learned a couple of years ago from a coach, he's like, well, verbalize it. And just like you talked about, I can't necessarily see a shot tracer, but I can tell you exactly what I want. And that has helped me so much. So it's just nice that you were able to elaborate that. And even 20 years ago, you were onto that, because it's such an important principle because not everyone has the same auditory versus visual abilities. So any of them work. It sounds like you're saying you just got to figure out what yours is.
That's right. And the same thing for rhythm. I was working with this one player, and I said, and he's just banging balls. And I said, what are you trying to do? And he said, I'm trying to slow everything down in my swing. And I'm watching him, and his waggle is like, I said, And everything he was doing was kind of fast twitch. And I went, why are you trying to slow it down? He said, well, isn't that what we're supposed to do? Nice, slow, smooth swing. And I said, yeah, if you're Ernie Els. But if you're John Rahm, that wouldn't work so well,
Right. Yeah.
So he said, so it's okay if I move through it really quickly? I said, that's how you live. Don't go against your personality. Use your energy and use the rhythm that you're used to and bring it to the golf course. Don't fight yourself with it. So if you're one of those fast twitch guys, no problem. Just walk up into a dress, waggle, waggle, go. And if you're slower, then walk up in slow motion. Get yourself settled. Take a good long look. And then da-dum, da-dum. Then you do the Bobby Jones Tennessee Waltz. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum.
And he made it look easy too.
Everybody's individual.
Yeah, I'm just so glad you said that, because I feel like that everyone feels like they're not doing it right, or they feel like they're missing out. And so having your own way to program yourself for the shot is huge. One last thing on the preparation that I was re-listening to your book a couple of days ago that I loved. You called it the anyway shots. Can you kind of elaborate on why? Because I had a different. Well, first establish what is an anyway shot.
All right. Yeah. This I came up with even before I started writing Zen Golf, and it was this feeling of, well, I'm not really comfortable. A little bit of wind came up. Now I'll go ahead anyway. I feel like I'm standing a little too far from the ball. I'll swing out. I'll go ahead anyway. I hear a car coming. I should be able to ignore that. I'll go ahead. And you're having this conversation with yourself about why you shouldn't go ahead, and then you convince yourself to go ahead anyway. And sometimes it's like, well, everybody's watching, and I don't want to slow things down. I'll just go ahead anyway. The wind came up, I'll swing a little harder. Or, I just realized what, it's teed up too high. Well, I'll swing up. And we talk ourselves into a shot that we're not really ready for. So I had a student, one of the first pros that I worked with, we're having dinner, and I was talking about this, and he said, I never do that. This guy from Texas said, I never do that. I'm always ready before I go. I said, humor me, just check. And if there are any shots, even just one that happens tomorrow and you're around, just let me know. We got together after the round, and he said, oh my God, I had no idea. I did 8 of them, and I didn't think I ever did that. So becoming aware of your habits, becoming aware of your patterns is the first step. If you're not aware of it, how can you change it?
Yeah, and having that the anyway in your book, you mentioned too, even like sometimes it's just not taking your wedges, and now all of a sudden you like get up there and you're like, I thought this was a lob wedge, and you only brought lob, and now you're like, I wish I had my gap wedge. Anyway, I'll just hit the shot. And I had a short game guru on a couple weeks ago, and he said the same thing. He's like, just take your 4 wedges every time you miss a green, so that way you never have any of that doubt. And so it's just like the little things like that, though, that can play such a big role, because there's nothing worse than being like, I would have made that chip up, 9 out of 10 times I would have got that up and down if I had the right club, or if I would have backed off the shot.
Well, we're either too lazy or worried about taking too long to go back to the cart. And if you're playing cart golf, yes, take more than one wedge. There's another good reason to take more than one wedge. It's easy to forget one wedge by the green. It's hard to forget 3 of them. You go back and put your putter in your bag, and it looks like there's a lot missing.
That's
But you won't notice that there's just one wedge missing.
That is so true. Yeah, if you all of a sudden get up there and you're missing the whole bottom part of your bag, it's time you're not going to wait until the next hole.
That's right. You go back and you have a look. So there's another good reason to take more than one wedge up to the green with you. And by the way, you may feel self-conscious to back off of a shot especially on the tee, while everybody's gathered around watching. So what I want to suggest is just say, couldn't get comfortable. Does every golfer know what that feels like? Yes, they will say, hey, cool. Hey, man, take your time. Because they also know that if you reset and get comfortable, they're less likely to have to be looking in the woods for your ball with you. And it'll take a lot less time for you to reset than to go look in the woods for your ball.
That is 100% the truth. Yes, I couldn't agree more to all that. And you are wicked smart for recommending everybody take their wedges with them. I love that. So we got the preparation down. We get into the action point here. And one thing I noted when re-listening was just the importance of playing with your head and play with your heart. I think that's a really cool way to like think about the action side of things. Can you kind of elaborate on the principle behind that?
Yeah, plan with your head. So you think everything through and be as thorough as you can and come up with a plan that you can commit to. Once you've committed to it, you don't need to think anymore about it. Get out of your head, into your body, and put your heart into it. Just no holding back. I try to refrain from negative language. The don'ts, and don't do this, don't do that. Watch out for this, watch out. The only negative I do use is don't hold back. Let it go. It's going to come down someplace, and if you don't interfere with your swing and make as trusting and free a swing as you can, your dispersion pattern is going to be smaller. So trust that and go after it. Okay, so that's what it means to play with your heart. And when you do that, you feel like you're not thinking about the swing while you're swinging. I have one chapter in Zen Golf, never keep more than 100 thoughts in your mind during your swing. And literally in one of my schools said, I'm trying to get down to 100. And what happens is we think we're making a good swing, but it doesn't quite work out. And we think, oh, you know what? I forgot to take it back a little slower. Okay, so I'll do that on the next one. Then we do that on the next one, and it's okay. And then we hit another not so good shot. And we go, oh, what's missing there? Oh, you know what? I forgot to cock my wrists a little sooner. Okay, so I take it back slower. I cock my wrists a little sooner. Oh, I didn't get my shoulder on my chin. And now I got to do this. Now I got to do that. And we keep adding more on to each swing. And we keep adding more on and more on. And you know what I call that? Moron golf. Because we just keep adding more on. Instead, say, okay, what got in the way there? What was I doing too much of, rather than just freeing it up? And that's why you do the replacement swing, erase and replace. And then you go, that's the feel I need to have. That's a committed swing. That's what I want to do next time. And you can actually get better at that. And in your response to results, you can reflect and say, what was my level of commitment? Was it totally guidey or helping or preventing, or was it more free? And on a 1 to 5 scale, fours are fine. 5s are great. 4s are fine. You can get away with 3s. 2s and 1s, where there's very little commitment and a lot of guiding and helping, you're going to hit some pretty bad shots.
So do you not recommend any swing thoughts?
I don't call them thoughts. I call them swing keys. You see, because for some people, it might be a mental instruction, or as we talked about, that's the more auditory. For some people, it's they hold a visual image in their mind of the shot, not thinking about anything to do with their feel. They just say, this is the image. And that's kind of what Tiger Woods' father taught him. He said, make a picture and hit it into the picture. And holding that picture in your mind, if you hold that picture vividly in your mind, there's no room for the thoughts. And some people, this is the feel I want. So a swing feel, a swing image, but not a swing thought. You don't want to be thinking about your swing. Then you're thinking, you're not swinging.
Right. Then you're playing golf swing instead of playing golf, right?
Agreed.
The last part on action that I just had to say has worked so well for me was the intentionality with the breath. So I have had a tendency in the past to get a little quick. And I remember playing in a multi-day event. I played pretty awful the first day for me. I mean, was nowhere near my potential, but I didn't feel like anything was really off. Like everything, like I felt like it was close. Like I wasn't like, really missing it. It was just a little bit off. Next day, I go to the hot tub before the round, just kind of trying to zen out and throw on your book. And I listen to the part about breathing before you cross kind of that commitment line and walk into the shot. And you talk about how important it is to really because I was rushing the breath. I was like breathing into the walk. And so my buddy who I was playing with is a huge fan of yours as well. And I told him, I was like, man, I was listening to that book again. And he's talked about like slowing your breathing down to give your breath before you actually walk into the shot. That made such a big difference for me. And I slowed down just enough to really get my tempo and my swing back that next day. And I think I was like 8 shots better. So it's just funny how the smallest things in your preparation and action can make such a big difference in your game.
So you got a little quick. I'm sure none of the golfers listening have ever experienced that.
Nobody's ever been quick except me.
It was a joke, obviously.
I know.
And it's not that you take the breath so slowly. You don't want to rush it and go, and you don't push it out. You just take a full breath, let it go out naturally, but let it finish going out. And there's a beat, and then you walk in. And so it's that finishing and then walking. Then you finish your setup, then you swing. You finish your transition, and then you swing. So it's about a transition. And that sets you up to a better transition that way.
Yeah, that was huge. I mean, it made an overnight difference. And so I always, whenever I'm working with people on their routines and what they're doing behind the golf ball, I'm like, don't skip the breath.
Finish the breath, then walk in. And it doesn't take much to get out of sequence. Just that, 100th of a second faster. But when it's flowing, then that's why we call it flow. It's a flowing sequence and it's even all the way through. Whether your tempo, it's not tempo, it's rhythm. And this is an important distinction. You can have a fast tempo or a slow tempo. If you're dancing, you can dance a salsa and you can dance a waltz, but they're both in rhythm. So if you are a kind of speedier person, go ahead, but make sure that your sequence is all in rhythm, not slow, part fast. So everything moves in rhythm. The transition is the important thing, and that's why what you're talking about of getting settled with your picture, got it. Now I do the breathing, finish it. Now I walk in, set up. Now I take it back, now I go forward. And it's all a sequence of rhythmic transitions.
Absolutely brilliant right there. If everyone just could add that to their game, they will see immediate results. And that's the whole point of this whole podcast and brand. I just want to help people stop thinking so much. We have YouTube and we have all these amazing resources, but people just think it's all swing related. And they got to get this mechanic and they got to get to P3 in this position. And it's like, yeah, you do have to have the technical skills to a sense, but once you can do it, you don't need to keep trying to recreate the perfect swing. And so that's one of those instant things that everyone could just benefit from. But the last part is the part where I feel like a lot of golfers, and I definitely can say I've been there and still struggle sometimes, is responding to the shot. So why do we care so much? Like, why is it so hard to deal with a bad shot?
Well, many years ago, when very few people talked about it, I talked about a post-shot routine. Everybody talked about people were already talking somewhat about a pre-shot routine, but until recently, very few talked about a post-shot routine. I was doing a corporate talk, about 100 people, and I asked, because I was talking about business and golf and the principles. Basically, what I teach is the psychology of performance, whether it's for golf, for acting, for business, for music, whatever it is, whatever sport, it's the psychology of performance. So I asked somebody, does anybody have a post-shot routine? And one little old guy in the back raised his hand. He said, yeah, I hit the shot and then I go, no, no, no. So that was most people's post-shot routine. Okay, why do we need that? The reason is whatever we experience, if we attach it, if we associate it to an emotional experience, it becomes stronger. Well, we hit a good shot. If we don't have emotion about it, we go, oh, thanks. I'll take any more of those you want to give me. Or just bend down and pick up the tee. There's no strong association with that. But we hit a bad shot. Whoa, the emotions churn up. We attach to that. And what comes in our mind next time? Not how to hit a good shot, how to avoid hitting a bad shot. That's not the way we want to walk into a shot. So instead, I flip it. Put some emotion into the good ones. Go, oh, baby. And I have people say, that's how I always hit it and then you can finish it any way you want for your preparation. When I stay connected to the target, when I trust my swing, when I swing with commitment, when I swing with freedom, any of those things, not technical, but the feel or when I swing in sequence, when I do my breathing, any of those things. And tell yourself, that's my game. Because usually we hit it sideways and go, oh, there I go again. Now, if you don't hit it perfectly, golfers are incredible critics. We can pick out what's wrong with a shot. I had a guy picking out what was wrong with his shot before he finished it, and it ended up going in the hole for a hole-in-one. But he was talking about all the bad things about it, and then it started turning, and then it landed and bounced in the right direction and went in the hole. Come on. Don't complain about your shot until after it stops is a good thing. So instead of picking out all the things that go wrong, that are wrong with the shot, because then you're focusing on what could go wrong. And that's something I did with VJ, and said, focus on what went well. And if it didn't go perfectly, just say that was close. Always say that was close. And then make the swing you wish you'd made and feel the difference. And this works for golfers at all levels. All levels. They can make a swing they know is better and then find something about that they can put into their next pre-shot routine. And if it's a real stinker, instead of saying, there I go again, and identifying with it, say, where did that come from? That's not like me. That's not my swing. What got in the way there? And identify what got in the way in your mind, or, it might have been a sound that you could do nothing about, but don't blame yourself. Don't assume that there's something wrong with your swing. It doesn't go bad that quickly. What happens is something gets in the way, like in any way, and go, yeah, I got to do a better job of my preparation, and I'll do that next time. But again, replace it. Don't leave that spot with a bad swing, or you will compensate for it on the next one.
That's something that I have not been doing lately. So thank you for the reminder. I like that. If you hit one that's less than stellar and not like super bad, but just, not what you had in mind, just to give it one more post practice swing. So that way you can get the right feel and then head into the next shot, not thinking about it anymore, and have a good feel, good visual kind of for how it should have went.
And not a practice swing, not a just kind of half,
right.
Real full swing a replacement swing.
Okay. Replacement swing. Yeah.
That's the one I had in mind. I liked what you said. Was that the one you had in mind? No, it was close. Now I'm going to make the swing that I did have in mind. Oh, that would have been fine. I just need to stay behind the ball a little bit more. That feel great.
I think that's such a big one, because it'll stop the blow up holes. A lot of my students that I work with, they say blow up holes are the, number one reason they're not playing good. And a lot of times it's just because you let one bad shot compound to another one. And then all of a sudden you have a bad hole, maybe a string of bad holes. And that can be really fixed to just getting a little bit of closure and having that post shot acceptance.
Yeah. I had a student, this has happened a number of times. And if they have a sense of humor, I can say this. Otherwise, I don't say anything. But hit a big push to the right on a tee shot, and the very next tee shot, big hook to the left. And I said, "Really good job of not going right. really good job of especially good job of not going right." So that's just a response to a compensation for the last one.
Right.
Clear that out. And then make a positive swing rather than a preventive or compensating swing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great closure for the shot there. I know we're running out of time. I got two last questions here. One of them is a quote that I used in my book that is from your book that I loved so much. You said, "The past is history, the future's a mystery. Being alive in this moment is a gift. That's why they call it the present." Why is staying?
I quoted that from someone else, so
perfect. Well, you know what? We're quoting greatness, but it's so hard to do. Like staying present is one of the best important skills to learn in your golf game, in your life, really. Why is staying present so difficult, and what is one thing that Zen Golf could help you with that?
Well, first is to change your perspective, and that is staying in the present is not difficult at all.
Okay.
And that's the default mode. We're always in the present. Is your body in the past?
No.
Unless you have a time machine. You don't have a time machine in your backyard, do you, Michael?
Working on it, but not yet.
No. So you can't send your body into the past or your body into the future. Your body's always in the present. Your mind, your thoughts, it's not your mind, but your thoughts can go into the past, thoughts of the past, thoughts of the future. They don't really exist. They're your memories of the past, which is thoughts, and they're your imaginations of the future, which is thoughts. So underneath the thoughts is always the present moment. So as soon as you shift out of thinking and go into perception, you can't see in the past or see in the future. What you're seeing with your eyes is always in the present. What you're hearing with your ears is always in the present. What you're feeling with your body is always in the present. So you connect, synchronize your body and your mind. You're present. The practice is awareness of when you're not here, when your mind is someplace else. And when it is, you go, wait a minute, where, and you just say, where am I? And as soon as you cut the thoughts of the past or future, ta-da, you're in the present. That's why the only thing that's hard is letting go of those thoughts of the past and the future. But once you let go of them, the present's always here, always available. So if you have that perspective rather than it's difficult to find, the reason you can't find it is because you never lost it. It's always been there for you. All you had to do was clear the interference. It's like the sun. The sun is always shining. The clouds come, you don't have to find the sun. Just have to part the clouds. Ta-da, sun's ready to go. You just have to part the clouds of thinking about the past and the future, and present mind is ready to go.
Yeah, when you can get that going too. I mean, I had a round last year that I can think of, and it was like I blacked out. I was so present. I mean, I never once thought about the future. I was so entranced in every shot I hit. I didn't even know what I shot, and it was the lowest I'd ever shot in my life. And I had the lowest front nine, the lowest round ever, and I was like, what just happened? It was one of those, and people were like, how do you do that? I'm like, read Zen Golf, I guess.
The answer is I didn't do that. And clearly you weren't blacked out, or you would have fallen down. So you were simply aware of what was happening in your experience and letting your talent come out, letting the energy flow through you. And that's why I said it's a feeling of everything coming through you rather than from you. That's why you say, I didn't do it. It happened. And it happens when we ourselves, the ball, the club, the golf course is one unified field of experience rather than a battle.
It's amazing how much the mind plays such a big role, and I'm so glad that you have helped so many golfers with it. Before getting to my last question, again, guys, if you do not own Zen Golf, I know most of you do because it's one of the best sellers of all time. You have Zen putting as well, which I'm a huge fan of, and maybe in the future we could talk more about the putting side of things because we didn't even get a chance to do that. But I love Zen putting as well, and I know you have another putting book too. You also have it's how to make every putt. You have a diet book. You have a Winnie the Pooh book for children. Anything next on the horizons that we need to be looking out for?
I hope to do another golf book and also a book about commitment and follow through. And really, if we are aware of the commitments that we make and we make them honestly to ourselves and others, and we follow through on those commitments, everything goes smoothly. When there's a commitment made, then there isn't a follow through, everything's a problem. So I'm going to be I'll be talking about that as well, and some more work on mindfulness and awareness.
Fantastic. Well, this day and age, we need all of that. So that's and you're still coaching too, correct?
Yes, and I coach in person in Southern California at the beautiful Ojai Valley Inn and Spa Resort. People are welcome to come and do lessons with me there, and I love to do playing lessons. The course was designed by the same designer as the Los Angeles Country Club, Riviera, and Bel Air in Los Angeles. So, but I also do, most of my lessons are virtual, like this engagement on Zoom or FaceTime or WhatsApp to Europe and everywhere in the world. So I have a few more of those coming up this afternoon.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, we'll definitely link to the website so people can learn more about working with you, and link to all the books down in the show notes. And just for the last question, what do you think is the biggest mental difference between the pros and the guys that are shooting in the 70s, but just quite haven't got to that scratch level? Because that seems to be a very common goal for my audience, is to shoot in the 70s and hopefully achieve that 0 handicap.
That's a really interesting question. For some of the pros, there's not much difference. There's a difference in talent and how much they've practiced and the kind of instruction they've gotten. For others, it's the ability to understand their game and play within themselves, and really play the course smarter, and knowing when to take risks and when not to. And I think that that's a big difference, and that's something that any golfer at any level can understand and plot your way around the golf course. Dance with the golf course. Don't fight it. Don't try to overpower it, and don't be intimidated by it. There's always a way to get to the green and into the hole. And if there isn't, if it's too long a carry for you to play, you shouldn't be playing those tees.
Yes, ego has ruined many of golfers, that is for sure. Just trying to tee it back a little too far and quote unquote get their money's worth. I've heard that one a time or two.
Well,
awesome, Doctor. Well,
great to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you again for sharing so much with us and being a guest on Wicked Smart Golf. Really appreciate it.